talk about as we go through the layout that I guess they're good practice comments more than anything. The first is that if you align these two pieces so that the fronts are together, we talked about this before, that you'll almost by default make mirror images of each other, which is what you want. This next thing is the other error minimization technique that occurs is that if you make your dimensions for the various dados out on the outer edge, and then you use a straight edge to connect them, and put in your marks, if there is any alignment error or mark transfer error out on the edge, at the front of the case, which is what you see when you open the door, that error will be minimized. In other words, these two marks will be, if there's registration problems out here, it'll be much less pronounced inside. The next one is that as I'm laying this thing out, I generally am thinking about building the piece as I go along. So, for example, I've got two sets of marks out on the edge right now, which are dados for the false back. And I like to think about, well, how far up do I want to bring that dado? Does it go into the top? What's the reveal going to be like on the back? Is it? I've got two lines drawn here. This represents how far forward the drawer dividers are going to come. Now I'm going to start putting in the drawer dividers. So as I'm going through this, I'm thinking about, well, how am I going to build this, right? What's it going to look like? It's just a good mental exercise to go through. And as a result, I generally will lay this all out in pencil to begin with, and then once I know it's right, once I've thought it through, then I'll come back with a knife and I'll scribe in the marks so that we can get really good transfer once we start using the router plane or any other tools, dovetailing or anything else. One of the ways to minimize error as you're using pencil marks is first use a mechanical pencil. This is a 0.7 millimeter, which I tend to like for marking. It's always sharp. I don't get a big fat line, then it's hard for me to know which side of the line to go to. Also, as you're using a ruler, if you tip the ruler up on edge and transfer the marks, you'll get better results. As if you put it on the side, there can be error, registration error. So use the plans, page 3, and start laying out the various dimensions. So I've marked in a little tick for the top, and I come down for the false front, and then start measuring the shelf dividers, the distance, sorry, not shelf, the distance between the distance of the drawer and then the distance of the drawer divider itself. So I've made those marks all the way down, and now I want to start connecting those lines. So a couple of things to do there. First of all, like I said, I like to do this in pencil first. It just helps me get a final look at things. And secondly, it helps me kind of work through all the mechanics before I commit a scribe to it. I like to take a clamp like this that holds my square in place. So basically I've got the square on my Bessie back here wedged in, and then I've got a clamp holding it here. Now there's very little chance that that square will move when I scribe it. So this line will be the top of my front. Just to review one more time, because you certainly don't want to make a mistake here. If you get this part right, the rest of the construction goes fairly easily. At the case back, that'd be the two outsides, we'll have a dado that goes from the bottom of the case side to halfway up to halfway through the top thickness. And this will be the deepest dado of anything. And that will basically allow our back to slide or move to expose this hidden shelf region. this hidden tray region between the top and the visible top. Then there'll be another set on the back. There'll be a rabbet that's shallower than this dado that will be the same depth as the drawer divider dados that will basically allow those drawer dividers to be slid in from the back, and will also be will basically set the width of the back. This kind of false top, if you will, or the inside top, will also be sitting in a dado, and that dado will be the same depth as the shelf divider. You can run that dado all the way from front to back if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. The original pictures show, though, that that's a stop dado. And we don't see the dado, but we can clearly see the joint line, and this particular piece is, basically ends up butting into this. So it's got to be a stop dado. And this false bottom, or there's the bottom that gets dovetailed into the case, and then there's another bottom that sits on top of that, so that our molding has a place to terminate. You'll see that revealed edge in the original photo. That also is not dado. And so I haven't marked any dado on the bottom of this at all for either piece. So go look at the original photo to convince yourself that these two surfaces do not get removed. They stay at the full thickness of the back. Then in addition to that, well, a note then that these drawer divider dados are stopped, and the drawer divider will actually get notched around these. It just covers up the joinery a little bit. And we need to also put in a rabbet. It's not a full rabbet. The rabbet goes from this top bottom piece to the bottom of the top piece, so that our drawer has a place to stop again. So this basically is going to be a shallow rabbet, and the door will close into this both on both sides. So that's the layout, and now it's time to go ahead and plow dados and rabbets. So there's a lot of ways to cut out these dados and rabbets. Use a router, use your table saw. If you want to do it with hand tools, all of these things can be done with a router plane or witch's tooth. So that's how these were plowed. And I thought I'd just demonstrate the way I go about using a smaller router plane to do these drawer dividers. We've already scribed the marks. I usually come back with a chisel, and a pretty wide bench chisel, and just punch the lines down a little bit. This. Then take your router plane. Just to, you'll have to make multiple passes, but just adjust it a little bit deeper each time, and let's just clear out the channel like this. You want to maybe stop a little bit short of the end. Sometimes it's easy to go past it and pop out the wood, but you can continue to pound down on the chisel, or as it gets deeper, I just will kind of run the back heel of the chisel along the channel to save some time. That. And adjust the router plane again. This particular router plane is by St. James Bay Tool Company. I think they're in Arizona. St. James Bay, yeah. It's a really nice little one. Lee Nielsen makes one, I think. So there are some options out there for these if you like them.